House just passed a bill to make Washington, D.C. the 51st state. They really did it. It fell right along party lines. It was 216 to 208 in the House, with all Republicans rejecting the bill, not surprisingly. Joining us now to talk more about this is Wisconsin Congressman Scott Fitzgerald. Congressman, good morning. Nice to see you again.
Good morning, Rob. Good to be with you again.
Pleasure to have you on a Friday. Donald Trump, and I had to look this up. I was just curious. Donald Trump got 5% of the vote in Washington, D.C. in 2020. Okay, we've got a city of 700,000 people. He got 5%. That means that Democrats know exactly what they're doing here. But to actually make Washington, D.C. our 51st state, which is unconstitutional, Democrats would need 2/3 of the vote in the House, in the Senate, and that seems like a reach in the Senate.
It does. I was there on the floor yesterday and listened to the back and forth that was happening by those that, were either supporting the idea, which it's very obvious, it's very transparent, it's a power grab. As you described, it would be 2 more votes in the U.S. Senate for the Democrats, and they're well aware of that. But they continue to push that narrative and try to justify it with either, kind of this historical perspective, how states had joined the union in the past. And, Steny Hoyer kind of, talked a little bit about Alaska and Hawaii and, very interesting, I guess, but is not relevant to the discussion that certainly was going on in the House yesterday. And, the power grab angle is first and foremost. Then there was some discussion, though, about, just straight up the 23rd Amendment and whether or not this is constitutional. And it's pretty clear that the fact of the matter is it is not, because there are 3 electoral votes associated with the district.
Right.
You would have to revisit the 23rd Amendment and make that change. And again, something that those that were pushing this idea kind of breezed right over.
And Alaska, Hawaii, we're talking 60 plus years ago. Eisenhower was president when those 2 states became our 49th and 50th states, respectively. New York Democrat Mondaire Jones says this is just another opportunity for the left to divide America by making D.C. the 51st state about race. Take a listen.
There is no good faith argument for disenfranchising over 700,000 people, most of whom are people of color. These desperate objections are about fear. Fear that in D.C. their white supremacist politics will no longer play. Fear that soon enough white supremacist politics won't work anywhere in America. Fear that if they don't rig our democracy, they will not win.
All right, so he's a Democrat, in case you didn't know. But I heard that yesterday, and it's just, what he said has nothing to do with what took place on the House floor yesterday.
No, it was disappointing. I mean, as he was relaying that kind of example and speech out there, you just kept thinking to yourself, almost everything that the Democrats have rolled out since January, if there's any criticism offered at all, or even some legitimate discussion or debate, somehow it always comes back to race at this point. And I don't think it's productive for anyone in the House to kind of engage in that. But, Congressman Jones has to understand and know that it wasn't relevant. So, what's the reasoning behind it? Why is he continuing to talk about race on the floor? It doesn't matter what the issue is, and statehood is one of them. And the other thing that happened, which I thought was very telling, was when the idea was offered to simply make the district part of the state of Maryland. That wasn't something that could be considered, and that also was somehow racist, and it's just disappointing that the level of discourse is kind of fallen to
and
that
if you look
level.
at the map, DC, much of DC, Maryland gave most of the land to make DC an independent body, which it was made that way in the Constitution. I want to talk about something that I know you're very passionate about, something that's happening right now called the Maximum Pressure Act. The Biden administration is playing fast and loose in the Middle East when it comes to Iran in particular. Tell us about what this bill would do.
Yeah, on Wednesday, the Republican Study Committee came together with former Secretary Pompeo. We were very fortunate. We had a short press conference in which the secretary once again kind of underscored or emphasized the idea that what the Trump administration was doing in regards to Iran was working. and the sanctions were working. It's a unique dynamic that exists right now in that, at the same time, you have the Biden administration backing off and trying to figure out ways of creating concessions. You also have China reaching out and sitting down at the table right now with Iran and cutting this deal that is very troubling, that says, listen, China will buy Iranian oil. For what? We're not sure. I mean,
Right.
That's what's troubling.
Right.
We're not sure exactly what's going on. So you have this dynamic of give and take going on with the Iran-China idea. And Secretary Pompeo spoke to the full Republican Study Committee, and he said, listen, the tenets of what was in place were working. And now the Biden administration is unraveling that. And it's another example, I think, of, what was working under President Trump.
Yeah.
It's now not going to be in place.
Yeah, the same situation on our southern border, of course. Policy that was working being undone for no good reason. By the way, Mike Pompeo said that when he was Secretary of State, that China would start to buy oil from Iran, and he was correct. I think it's going to be interesting to see if he does run for the White House in 4 years. Congressman Scott Fitzgerald, thanks so much for being on with us this morning. Have a great weekend. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Great to be with you again. Thank you very much.
You too. Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.